汉妙法论教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，足证无生。Will the Sangha we reward you out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings? Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahuti sammyayo sanbutoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samyao sambudoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. My name is Hung Shur. Today is May 2nd here in Queensland, Australia. May 1st, it's May Day in the Bay Area, California, as well as the Western states. And wherever you might be listening, please adjust your calendar accordingly. We're here on our evening sutra lecture, the Flower Garland Sutra, the 10 Stages chapter. And we're bilocated here in both in California and in Queensland. So we are working through the verse section of the 10 Stages chapter. So we're at the end of the 10 Stages chapter, the Shirdipin, the Flower Garland Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra. So in order to get our lecture underway today, I'm going to, let's see here, what page am I on? Here on page 8 for that. So I'm going to take us up to the title of our text so that we can do an invocation, we can do a chanting. Here it is. Here it is right there. And the point of this is to, in Qing Chuan Fa Lun, please to request that the Buddhas turn the Dharma wheel. And this is one of Samantabhadra's practices and vows. So we're just following instructions, so to speak. We're doing yi jiao feng xing, as they say in Chinese, doing what we're told to do something quite wonderful, in fact, to invite the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Sutra to draw near and to bless this assembly. So we'll do it in Chinese. Welcome to join, please do. Like that. Namo Is that a uniquely American invocation with a banjo? Maybe. As long as it's sincere, that's what matters most. So I'm going to preface no, I promised myself I would not do it that way. I'm going to do it a traditional way, which is to say, first, do the text. Here it is. To the sound of roaring motorcycles. Manifestation, here we are. Okay, okay, we're going to actually start with last week's quatrain, last week's verse, and then continue to this week's, because I will be sharing both the prelude to today and then the sixth stage. We covered the fifth stage last week, fifth ground. We're gonna go to the sixth and then come back, all right? So that's this one right here. Let's make it bigger so folks can see it. Here we are. And our method, we're chanting these verses. If you're familiar with our method here, we, oh, by the way, I wanted to introduce the Dharma Hall here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm and to show you our wonderful Amitabha image and Earth Store Bodhisattva image right here. This is kind of serves as the Shifang Dian, the Nito Dian, and the Dizang Dian, the Earth Store and Amitabha halls here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm. So we're chanting the verses. So I give you a line with a slight melody to it, just a little bit of melodic consistency, and then you're free to give it back to me. So that's our method of we're chanting the text as we go. Okay, ready? Yan hui ju zu de dao zhi, yan hui ju zu de dao zhi, gong yang bai qian wu liang fo, gong yang bai qian wu liang fo, chang guan zui sheng zhu gong de, chang guan zui sheng zhu gong de, si ren qi ru nan sheng di, si ren qi ru nan sheng di. Full of mindfulness and wisdom, he obtains knowledge of the Tao. Full of mindfulness and wisdom, he obtains knowledge of the Tao, making offerings to limitless numbers of Buddhas, making offerings to limitless numbers of Buddhas, always contemplating supreme merit and virtue, always contemplating supreme merit and virtue. He reaches the stage of difficult conquest. He reaches the stage of difficult conquest. Okay, next one. 智慧方便善观察，智慧方便善观察，种种实现九众生，种种实现九众生，复供十力无上尊，复供十力无上尊，去入无生现前地。 Chiru Ushang Shen Chendi. Okay, English for number 6 now. With wisdom and expedience, he skillfully contemplates. With wisdom and expedience, he skillfully contemplates and appears in many ways to rescue sentient beings. Appears in many ways to rescue sentient beings. He worships peerless honored ones of 10 powers. He worships peerless honored ones of 10 powers and reaches the birthless, the stage of manifestation, and reaches the birthless, the stage of manifestation. One more. Ready? 世所难知而能知，世所难知而能知， 不受于我利有无，不受于我利有无，法性本寂随缘转，法性本寂随缘转，得此微妙相其地，得此微妙相其地。He knows things the world finds hard to know. He knows things the world finds hard to know. Unburdened by a self beyond being and non-being. Unburdened by a self beyond being and non-being. And how the unmoving Dharma nature adapts to conditions. And how the unmoving Dharma nature adapts to conditions. Attaining this subtle wonder, he reaches the seventh stage. Attaining this subtle wonder, he reaches the seventh stage. Okay, all right. Now it's funny how as we do the chanting more, it kind of sets in really quickly. I think there's a reason why wisdom texts are often memorized and chanted. It's because the mind likes it. We like to have that wisdom touching the right brain as well. Right? Instead of simply announcing language, pronouncing language. All right. So here we are. Bodhisattva, let me give you the background. We have a Bodhisattva in training, somebody who is on his or her way to becoming a Buddha along the Bodhisattva path. And we're in the verses part, which in that training follows the prose in each different stage. So we're now in the verses part of the 10th stage. And as part of the verses part of the 10th stage, they review stages 1 through 9, right? So that's what we're doing too. We're returning, we're taking each verse, that is the reprise, the repeat, and going back to the text that it talked about so we can refresh ourselves on the highlights, right? So this way we get an overview of the whole course of training, the whole education that a Bodhisattva goes through. And we've said as one of our prefaces to this that there's two things to hold in mind parallel. One is the paramitas, the Bodhisattva's dharmas, the perfections, right? Called the liu du, also called the shi du, the 6 perfections, 6 ways across, and the 10 perfections, the 10 ways across. We're holding that in parallel, matching the 10 stages because there's a crossover. So give me an example. All right, I'll do that. One example would be when we look at the paramitas, the perfections, there's 1 to 5, and then there's 6. And 1 to 5 prepare the Bodhisattva for 6, because at 6, there's a big, big change. Okay, we see that now in the 10 stages as well. How does it work? Well, let's look at the paramitas. There's giving and precepts. So who is it? You've made the Bodhi resolve. This is somebody who says, I can maximize my potential for wisdom. I want to do that. As the song goes, might as well cultivate. Ain't got nothing else to do. Might as well cultivate. I want to become a Buddha. I know I can. I know I can become wise. And I've identified that the way to become wise is to become compassionate. And the way to become compassionate is to deal with all the issues in myself, the self and myself. Deal with all of my bad temper. Deal with all of my timidity. I need to be more courageous. Deal with all of my arrogance and pride and hardness and lack of kindness, right? All of the issues that each one of us has as they come up, we deal with them. We find a way, think of them as afflictions. We find a way to calm those afflictions and bring us peace of mind. That's compassion. That's the path to Buddhahood. Okay, because it sounds like the Avatamsaka Sutra, doesn't it? So that's the deal. So the Bodhisattva does it by how? By giving to them, to us, giving to himself, herself, giving to others, and giving up the self, a little piece of it every time you do it. You literally give yourself away. By letting go of the stuff that otherwise, oh, I can't let go of that. I might lose a bargain, you know. Yeah, give it away. Ah, what a relief, right? Giving away your fears and finding that fear is it's not the bedrock, it's not the bottom, it's a level up in somewhere mid-tree, mid-trunk. Get down to the roots, there's no fear, right? Ah, gave it away, right? So, second step. Once you feel that relief and happiness from giving, the joy of giving, you think, oh, how do I make that part of myself? How do I make the happiness stay? And the answer is changing your behavior, changing my behavior, becoming a person, a better person according to ageless wisdom. Buddha's wisdom, wisdom that Moses brought down from the mountain on the tablets, the wisdom of the Holy Quran, right? And the wisdom of Patanjali and his yoga teachings. Every major faith says, you want to be a good person? Here's how. Avoid these things. Give life, don't kill. Give stuff, don't steal. Keep your promises, don't cheat. Hold your word, don't lie. And Buddhism goes on to say, don't intoxicate yourself. Ha! Where is that taught? Second paramita, Shila paramita, precepts, right? Learning how to be the best possible person. There's a way, there's a method. Okay, that's the first two. Got it? Okay, giving precepts, the first two paramitas. Bodhisattva says, yeah, I'm much more grounded now. Yeah, I'm not like moody like before. I'm not deluded all the time like before. Okay, next two, right? Hey, I could make this, I could get used to this. So what I need to do is I need to find a practice that puts this new feeling of rootedness in my nature. Well, what you discover is there are practices that open up your nature to discover that these things are in there already. You just have to reshape in there in order to make it more permanent, right? To see it. In other words, we're removing what covers our nature through Dharma practices, patiently apply. So patience is the next one, right? You have to do it, apply it. Oh, gee, I can see so much further. I feel like I'm higher up Nirvana Mountain now, right? It's patience. That is a key paramita, a key perfection. And it comes with a mate and a match. What is it? Is, they call it strength, virya, right? Vigor. So you apply those patient practices strongly, repeat them, rinse and repeat, do it again, do it again, do it again. And you remold yourself in the shape of the Dharma. Okay, that's the fourth one, the second pair, giving and precepts, patience and vigor. Wow. Now you're on a Dharma path. And the Bodhi resolve is now transformed you, right? And there's changes inside. You're really actually, you found something that is molding yourself. It's not anymore, you know, one step forward, two steps back. Now it's one step forward and no steps back, right? Like that. And you really feel like you're getting somewhere. It's not, you know, the kind of the flavor of the month. So, okay, 4 out of 6. We're getting to where I wanted to take us. Next one is number 5, and that was last week's lecture. What is number 5? In the paramitas and in the practices, in the stages, number 5 is samadhi. So you've been giving, you've been remolding your habits towards wisdom, the precepts. You've been practicing patiently with these things like meditation, recitation, mantra study, studying wisdom, karma yoga, serving others, all of these practices, reducing the self, right? And gaining in goodness and virtue, and something happens called Samadi. Zheng Ding Zheng Shou. We talked about that a lot last week. Right focus and right tuning in, right? Called right reception. Just think of it like a radio dial, right? Getting on the signal, on the beam. Do you ever try to type in a URL into your command line of your browser and have the wrong spelling? What happens? You don't get the site you wanted, right? So yeah, so you learn right reception. Samadhi happens, Sanskrit word, which means we translate it as meditation or focus. We used to say concentration, but concentration sounds tight, right? Ajahn Pasano doesn't use the word concentration anymore when he teaches meditation. He says focus, right? Essentialness, getting rid of everything that isn't the signal. Okay, Samadhi. And with Samadhi, changes happen. When our teacher, Master Shenhua, Shifu Shengong Shangren, when he would throw a 7-day meditation retreat, we'd do a Chanqi, a Chan meditation retreat, Chan 7 they call it. About the 3rd or 4th day, when people were kind of over their first, you know, you get in there full of vigor, and by the 2nd or 3rd day, it hurts a lot, and you're tired, and you kind of, and then you get a second wind. Once people got the second wind, usually on the 3rd or 4th day, Shifu would open up the teaching on the dhyānas, and he would say, Chu Chan, 就是理生喜乐地, right? And he would say, 二禅定生喜乐地, 三禅离喜妙乐地, 四禅清净舍念地, right? And we would go, that sounds powerful. What is that? He would say, the first dhyāna, you leave behind what living beings like. The stage of joy beyond what living beings can experience. You go, what's that, Shifu? We'd say, anybody can, you can too. Just don't have so many false thoughts. And he said, it's better than any experience you've ever had. We would say, better than ice cream. Yep. And better than chocolate. Better than chocolate, Shifu. And then he would say, yeah, go to the second dhyāna. He would say more. You know, this is the whole thing about the dhyanas. There's this whole lore, this whole body of knowledge. And he would say, oh yeah, you know how you entered the first dhyāna? He says, your heartbeat stops and you're not dead. But unfortunately, as soon as you know you've entered the first dhyāna, you're no longer in the first dhyāna. It pops you right back out because you had a thought. See how difficult? Anybody can, but most people don't even want to. They're too attached to their flavors. So then he would say, the second dhyāna is called Ding Sheng Shila Di, the stage of happiness that arises from Samadhi, or when Samadhi is born. Ding Sheng Shila Di. And he would say, you want to get to that? Oh, it's great. The joy of this? No, but even the first dhyāna can't imagine how blissful, how wonderful you feel. And your breathing stops. You open up horizontal breathing, your lungs don't work the same way, and you're not dead. You say, what? How is this possible? Who's ever heard of this, right? He would say, unfortunately, as soon as you think you're in the second dhyāna, you're not. You popped right out because you had a thought. And at this point, you know, Shifu speaking in riddles, but it's riddles that make incredible sense. So he would describe the dhyanas. And I'm telling you this to say that once you get to this 5th stage, there is a transformation. There's a big change. Your body and mind and nature have changed. They're different now. They're really different. And it's not that you're broken or that you can't go back to being an ordinary person, but you have you've reached a new level. And I remember when I was here, when I was it was at Berkeley when we first touched the fifth stage. And where are we? Here we go. And I would always reach for my musical instrument and say, you need an octave here at this point. You function the same way, right? The string still goes like that. Same old pitch. But once you get to the samadhis, once you experience the samadhi that arises from zheng ding, zheng shou, right focus and right reception, you can do this with your string. Same string, but now you can play it differently. That's the old. Right? You choose which one you want to play at, right? Same string, different playing ability. It's an octave. And now you can play your life, you can play your body, your mind, and your nature in an octave because of samadhi. And okay, so we're getting close to my jump off point into today's text. This is to say the fifth stage that we touched on last week is the same way. The Bodhisattva, there's been a change now in the Bodhisattva's progress along the 10 stages, right? First one, stage of happiness, makes a Bodhi resolve, gets happy, makes vows. I'm gonna rescue living beings because, oh, it's so happy to approach the Dharma this way. Two is I learn about right and wrong. I learn about good and evil. And I make resolves because I need to, I really feel a kinship with people, but I don't know enough to really save them. So I'm going to learn right and wrong, 10 goods, 10 evils. Third stage, the Bodhisattva learns the Dharma. Probably in this whole series, the third stage was the biggest revelation. There's so much going on at that point. It's the equivalent of patience, right? The counterpart of patience in Paramitas. But what the Bodhisattva learns there is he sees through the world. Things don't attract him or her the way they used to. He can truly 放下, right? 看破放下, see through and put down things that used to hook him, things that used to be just intoxicating and captivating and just sublime, seductive things of the world that touch the ears and the eyes. Not anymore, right? Bodhisattva can really put them down because he sees, not because he's become some sort of cold robot, not at all, right? It's that instead, the Bodhisattva's eyes now understand. He truly understands, she truly understands the nature of created things. That's half. The second half of what happens in that third stage is he sees that living beings have not put it down. And the people he or she is related to deeply are hurting like mad. And he develops this counterpart wisdom and empathy at the same time. And he says, I gotta learn Dharma. Because if I can learn the Dharma, I'll be able to help. I'll be able to teach them. That's what the Bodhisattva does now. Third stage. Okay. Then comes the fourth stage. And he says, anything that I can learn about the Dharma, I will, because I'm determined that that is what works. So he's now looking for a teacher. And he amasses practice, more practices, and masters them, and gets ready for this fifth stage. And the fifth stage is Samadhi. He's able now to get to a place where nothing outside moves him off his new focus. He's transformed. He really has lost his taste for the flavors of the world anymore, because his senses are different. They're really different now. And so at this point, he is able to re-enter the world and teach with all these incredible variety of things to teach, that he can enter into any phase of the world and not move his mind off of his focus on Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, giving, precepts, and they say the Devas, the 六面. So 就是佛法僧施戒天, those are the 六面, the six places of mindfulness. The Bodhisattva never loses his focus of those. Okay, so I'm gonna, let's see here. This is my chance to point to what I wanted to share from last week, but didn't. Okay, and I'll just touch on it. We're gonna take we probably should do this would be the chance for the musical interlude, right? We'd go something like Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva. Little palate cleanser, but you're still stuck with my old voice as before. So here's what I wanted to share from last week in preparation to get to today. Here we are. This is, here we go. That is to say, the expedient means that the Bodhisattva uses on the 5th stage is the gateway for education, for learning. My experience of Master Shenhua, of my teacher, was someone who 活到老学到老. He was an exponent. He was an advocate for lifelong learning. Shifu loved to learn. When I saw him encountering something new, everything from an automobile, the latest model or the oldest model, all the way to tabletops in a boardroom, right? When Shifu sat down in a new chair, he would look at the chair, how it was made. He would look at the table, how they joined it, whether they wasted material making it too wide for its function, or a new contract, or everything from astrophysics to the amount of cement and lime and sand in mortar. Shifu wanted to know about it. He learned it. He was a lifelong learner, and that it wasn't just curiosity. It was everything he learned, he applied immediately to teaching us, right? You could see the Bodhi resolve in action. And whenever you'd be riding in a car with Master Hua, he would focus on the driver or the host who was in the car to pick us up at the airport to take us to the new venue for the Dharma talk, right? Shifu would ask, listen, and then find out who was there and how to teach them, right? And so there was this immediate application of what he learned, and to use expediently on the spot to teach. That was my experience of Shifu outside the door. Once he left the monastery, he was in learning teaching mode. So he's learning teaching, listening and applying, like that. That was always happening. And what I saw, this is not my understanding, this came from a Tang Dynasty commentator who said, oh, you're studying the fifth stage, you need to know about the Wu Ming Xue. You need to know about the five-fold. So, oh, look at that. The five-fold sciences. There we go. Wu Ming Xue. The five sciences, right? This was what? This was India at the time of the Buddha. This was their educational curriculum. This was how Indian culture at the time of the Buddha's teaching understood education. This was the undergraduate curriculum. They were called the five bright sciences, the five-fold curriculum. The five meaning awakening, enlightening, understanding, bright, clear, xue studies, right? The five bright studies, right? They were yin ming, nei ming, sheng ming, yi ming, and gong qiao ming. Okay, what were they? They were causality science, right? In other words, Dharma, cause and effect. This makes this happen. Causality. That's yin ming. I'll put them together. I'll just cut and paste them right there together. Okay. Next one was nei ming, which is to say inner studies, human systems, epistemology, how we learn, how we know stuff, right? So an inner study of cause and effect. Then the third one was called sheng ming, shabda. And sheng ming had to do with science. And what kind, I'm sorry, sound science, i.e. what? Everything that had to do with letters, literature, music, right? Everything from poetry to novels to ABCs to grammar to rhetoric to logic to rhetoric, and then to the applied arts where you put music to it, right? So sound, sheng ming. Okay, number 4 was yi ming, which is what? Medicine. And medicine included such things as mental illness, so brain medicine, mind medicine, spirit medicine. Somebody was possessed and there was a whole bunch of training for how to purge spirits that could get into somebody, right? So Ayurveda in India or Ishe in China was that 4th study. And then the last one, Gongqiao Ming, included everything that had to do with the material world. So it seems here, excuse me, we've got incense in it. So Gongqiao is arts and crafts, but that arts and crafts include everything from architecture to jewelry making, right? Everything from, astrology or astrology would bridge over to medicine. Hippocrates is said to have said, a physician who doesn't use astrology in determining the health of clients is more a fool than a physician, they say. So anyway, that was understood that if you look at the stars, you look at the people, you find a correspondence. So that was part of Gongqiao and also medicine. But the arts and crafts was such a broad, everything that had to do with material, the physical world was in Gongqiao. So those are the five items of the 5 items on a liberal arts curriculum, but it included science. So STEM was part of Gongqiao and also in causality, right? So fascinating how this, if you could get off the plow, if you were in a family that had enough food to eat so that the children could go get an education, This was the education you got. And of course, mind you, there's a subtext here, which is what, 5% of the population had the leisure to go study. Everybody else was too busy pulling food out of the earth. So an agrarian society. But should you be one of those people with the blessings to learn letters and language, this was what you studied. Okay, now there's another fascinating comparison that you can make with Confucius and his 6 arts, 六艺, in a classical Confucian education, which cross over. And this takes us, we're digesting the 5 studies, right? But I don't want to give us too much so we can't make sense of it all. But Confucius had Li, Yue, She, Yu, Yu, Shu, and Shu, right? Which corresponded to the departments, you could say, or the items in educational curriculum. This is what you learned if you went to school in a Confucian way, which takes care of millions and millions of people over thousands of years. You learn social arts, Li. Music taught you visual and sonic art, right? So eyes and ears. Also the mental discipline that arises from learning music. That included the Wu Xing Xing there, right? The 5 elements. Physics was part of that, as you learned how stone bells vibrated when you hit them with a hammer, right? Archery was what? Martial arts. That's where you learned self-defense. That's where you learned strengthening your body, okay? Archery covered all of the arts. That's where you learned how to move and how to be strong and train your body. Charioteering was driver's ed, right? But more than that, it was also animal husbandry, where you learned how to work with the non-human beings of the world, horses and all the other living beings. It opened into the world of non-human beings. Then calligraphy, Shu, was where you learned a good hand with a brush, but what did you write? That's where you learned words. That's where that would be shengming in the Indian scheme. And then the last one is shu, which is math. And mathematics, of course, opens into STEM. So all the sciences that have to do with computation, that have to do with logic and the magic of mathematics, right? You know, the coders who say, oh man, I just fell in love with numbers, and every time I crunch my numbers, I see the face of God, basically. So mathematics as a door to the spiritual, how wonderful is that, right? Music can be the same. Actually, all of these can, if you take them to their source in the mind, can bring you back to the nature. So, okay, 6 arts of Confucius, Liu Yi, the 5 sciences of Indian study. What is this? This is what the Bodhisattva learns expediently in order to teach living beings, right? So when you get to stage 5, this is where you go next. Why? Again, because the Bodhisattva is now solid, stable in his or her Samadi, they can teach without moving. What do they teach? These things. There's a way that by mastering the 5 sciences and the 6 arts, you get close to living beings, right? Remember those 4 dharmas for gathering in? Those are called the 四摄法, right? What are they? They are generosity and giving, kind words, cooperation, and service. So it's those 3rd one right there, 同事. What are they called? The 四摄法. They're 布施, 爱语, right? 同事, and then 利, huh? Those are the 4. And that 3rd one, cooperation. When you're working with somebody and you're the doctor, they're the patient, you're the calligraphy teacher, they're the student, you're the the driver and they're the student. You're the jewelry maker and they're the client. This is the way the Bodhisattva, whatever works, right? Of course, from the Samadi, the Bodhisattva is able to see what is needed. Yeah. So if you're a really skillful jeweler, but the person you're trying to teach doesn't wear jewelry, what's the use of that, right? So the Bodhisattva, from his or her Samadi, can see what is needed and then applies it. Okay, done. That's last week. That's number 5. Okay, now we get to number 6. And man, oh man, oh man. I have to say, I was a personal story here. I was taken back. Wrong idiom. I was taken aback. People who study English, Chengyu, right? To be taken aback. I was surprised when I got to the 6th stage. I honestly thought I wasn't gonna get there. Why? Because the 6th stage, let's look at the perfections. What happens at number 6? Okay, giving and precepts, first pair. Patience and vigor, second pair. Samadhi and prajna, wisdom, are the third pair in the 6 perfections and the 6 stages. The prajna step, number 6, what's it like? It's like an airplane. Many of us, not during the pandemic year, but in previous years, have had the experience of you're in a plane, you've secured your tray table and fasten your seatbelt. You're running down the runway, the plane, the noise outside goes, there's this pressure in the back of your seat going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster down the runway, and then boom, and your plane leaves the ground. And you realize if you look out the window, maybe you got a window seat, you look out the window and you see things are falling away, right? And what you're doing shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't be possible to take a jetliner full of jet fuel, full of 130 passengers if it's a 737, and the crew and the pilots and your baggage. It shouldn't be possible for that to take off, but you do. And away you go. Right? So in the 6th stage, the Bodhisattva takes off. 1 to 5 have been preparation. When you're giving all the way to Samadhi, you're still on the ground. You're still connected, right? And everything is still relating to the 6 senses. That's the point. You're still using your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind as before, as always. When we get to prajna, there is a difference. You're no longer only using your 6 senses. You're now able to use something called transcendent wisdom. And on the 6th phase, we have to introduce some new terms. Things like RD, 2 levels of truth. Because before, ordinary relative truth was all we needed. Now, at this point, we have to introduce something called ultimate truth, right? Sheng, Di. The Di is the Huangdi with the 加一个言字边, right? The Chinese character for it is has words with emperor. These are sublime words. All right. An example of these 2 truths, with the first level of truth, there is duality. There's right, there's wrong. There's true, there's false. There's night and day. There's male and female. Everything we've learned, binary, right? There's 0 and 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 if you're a coder. That's all, that's been the limits of our knowledge. When we get to this stage, suddenly the alpha, the duality goes away. And we are able to see the unity that underlies all duality. And yet, the ordinary truth is available to us. We can use that. We've mastered all of worldly knowledge in stage 5. But now, it's as if, what do they say? When you get to this state of wisdom, the mind, which before was always chopping everything into small bits in order to understand it, right? If you want to understand the biggest, you have to understand the smallest. This reductionist theory of knowledge, it's chopping everything up, trying to learn the name for everything. I can say book in French is un livre, right? Book in Chinese is shu, book in Japanese is hon, right? And yet none of those, livre and shu and hon and book, none of those things touch the book itself. It doesn't help us understand the thing. We just named it. So knowledge was always getting all the name, infinite names. When we get to stage 6, all the names return back to the mind encountering an object outside itself and then deconstructing the mind that knows book back into the experience of cognition itself, of knowing itself. And that's very disorienting because you go back to nothing, right? You've totally unbuilt the world. And the Bodhisattva, because of Samadhi, doesn't lose his stance. And he can do that constantly. He can take the book, the name, and the experience of knowing those things and take it to the void and bring it back like that to teach it in case you need to know it. How do you want to hear it? Le livre du matin, c'est bleu, right? 我妈妈那本书是红色的书，好重, right? You can say, oh, my mom's got a very big red book. I like that book, full of stories. 很多故事在那本书里边. You know, I can hear the stories in the book. The Bodhisattva takes all that and goes, you want to hear about red books? Fine. After I'm done talking about the red books, my mirror is unmoved. So, oh boy, right? What has happened now is there's been a transformation in the Bodhisattva's apparatus by which he or she knows things. Why? Samadhi, right? You thought all that, you know, the stage of happiness that leaves behind what living beings can know, that was just for pleasure, for being able to have some, you know, some street cred in your Samadhi merit badge. Partly, but not wholly, right? It was also a process by which you have transformed through sitting through the fire of Samadhi. They call it the, I think it's 自性火, 三昧自性火. The fire of Samadhi has transformed your body and mind now so that you see things differently, should you choose to, mind you. You can always go back to the ordinary relative truth anytime to teach, but you're not bound by it. So that is the 6th stage experience. Okay, all right. That's all preamble. Let's get to today's text. What was it? It was 世所难知而能知，不受于我，利有我有无。 法性本机随缘转，得此微妙上其力。He, she knows things that the world finds hard to know, unburdened by a self beyond being and non-being, and how the unmoving Dharma nature adapts to conditions. Attaining this subtle wonder, he reaches the seventh stage. Okay, the last line is always on to the next one, right? So we got 3 lines here. Here on the sixth stage, called manifestation, he knows things the world doesn't really know. Why? The answer is Samadi. He's now got choices. He sees ultimate truth and relative truth in the blink of an eye, in the flip of a hand, from the palm to the back, to the hand to the back, back to the palm, like that. It's a choice for him now. Next line, unburdened by the self. That's the difference. And at this point, being and non-being are just words for him. He's reached that rooted place in the mirror where nothing moves, and all the world appears in front of the mirror temporarily, goes away. The mirror is the same. The mirror, the Da Yan Jing Zhi, right? This great, perfect mirror-like wisdom. Furthermore, if, this is key, this is really, really key. It sounds kind of super left brain and analytical, right? It's not. It's powered by compassion. That's really key to understand. The Bodhisattva is willing to go through this really, really disorienting, even terrifying loss of stability. What's it like to always see stuff fall apart? Always. You have to look in the void and not freak out, right? Bodhisattva can do that because he knows that once he is able to stand, he can really teach. No matter who comes up, no matter who throws awful, awful stories of misery and suffering. The stories coming out of India this month, month of April, of how coronavirus has devastated India. There's today's headlines said the number of cases around the world, with India leading, cases of coronavirus are the highest since it began, right? And India just simply wasn't, no country could have been prepared for the onslaught of need from people suffering from COVID-19. And the stories are, you can't compute, they're so painful. Bodhisattva looks at that and goes, all right, who's next? Come on over, we'll see what we can do. Right? We'll fix it. So nothing scares him. And the key here is unburdened by a self. Okay, now I'm going to park this one. This is today's text, and go to our 6th stage text. Talk about riches. Where it begins, I really like this. Bajra Treasury Bodhisattva is our speaker, and he went to the heaven of the king of serenity, Ishvara, to speak this text. And Ishvara is a god, he's a Deva, and he and his following are really happy that they're going to hear this. They've heard the verses, they've heard the 5th stage, and they want to get the 6th stage Dharma. So they take gems, they take jewels and throw them in the air, and they turn into clouds, jewel clouds radiating and shining and blinking. And they made offerings with them and said, please teach us now. We want to hear it now. And what happened? The goddesses, the devas in this heaven sang. It's a remarkable song that they sing. It is not it's not what you'd expect if you Listen, if your Spotify playlist, your Spotify playlist probably doesn't have this kind of song as the Devis, the goddesses, praise the Buddha. What did they say? With musical notes in unison, they said, the Buddha's teachings chase away the illness of affliction. The Dharma nature is quiet, free of any hallmarks. It's like empty space, which never makes discriminations. It goes beyond both grasping and attachment and the path of words. It is true and real and impartial. It is forever pure. Don't you wish you could hear that coming over your speakers? My ears would prick right up if I heard. If one can connect with the nature of dharmas and be impartial towards existence and non-existence, and motivated by a wish to save the world, cultivate with vigor, such a person becomes reborn from the Buddha's teachings and is a true Buddhist disciple. Yeah, that's not going to make the top 50, but one can hope. Makes the top 50 in the heaven of the desire realms. Okay. Now, here's what I wanted to share with you. That's why I wanted to dip back in. All right. Okay, here, this is it. The Chinese, our poor translator, Kevin, is working so hard to keep up here. This is not easy going. Here's the Chinese. This is 6th stage text. 佛子慈菩萨摩诃萨如是观以复以大悲为首，大悲增上，大悲满足，观世间生灭，作是念，世间受生，皆有着我，皆有着我。若离此着，自无生处。That's it. Okay, what is it? Disciples of the Buddha, when the Bodhisattva Mahasattva makes these contemplations, he puts great compassion first. His great compassion increases and develops to its fullness and perfection. He sees how worlds are created and destroyed, and he thinks everything in the world comes into being because of attachment to the self. Once someone gets free from that attachment, rebirth has nowhere else to stand. Okay. That sentence is a Buddhist PowerPoint, not a PowerPoint slideshow, but that is a powerful point that Buddhists made, and I haven't heard, maybe Sufis can say these things, but my dearly beloved professor, chairman of my dissertation committee, Professor Nakasone, said something striking to me, said many striking things, but this one was particularly striking. He is qualified, mind you, to say so. He's a PhD from Wisconsin in Avatamsaka. Yeah. He said, now he was a Jodo Shinshu minister, and having his perspective distinctly was shaped from that tradition. But when he first said it, I blinked, and I won't say I just discarded it, but I had to chew on this statement for a long time before I saw the wisdom in it. He said, Pratitya Samutpada was the Buddha's supreme contribution to world religion. Let me translate that. He said, the 12因缘应该说是释迦牟尼佛最大的贡献，从宗教之间，宗教立场来讲，12因缘是佛最大的贡献。He said, and I was like, but what about emptiness, and what about the Lotus Sutra? What about the, he said, no, think about it. He said, and it took me a long time to appreciate his perspective, but I'm tending to, I think maybe there's not only one, but among the Buddha's contributions, this is peerless. What is it? Look at this. He sees how worlds are created and destroyed. Okay, what is that? Well, if we look at the Holy Bible, by golly, it begins with a creation story. And the creation story has a creator who creates the world and the beings in it, and then rests on the seventh day, right? It's a story. But if you ask, where did the creator come from? You don't get an answer. Okay? Most world religions that have a God in place, a theos, have to give you a creation story about the world and the system that God put in place, but none of them deconstruct the Supreme Being himself. Buddhism does just that, right? Look at this. He sees how worlds are created and destroyed, and he thinks everything in the world comes into being because we attach to the self. If we can get rid of that attachment, there's no more rebirth. You're done. You're unmade. And you can rest. Until you notice that everybody else is suffering, and then you put your tennis shoes on and you go out and go to work to teach. But this is the story of uncreation of the world, and it has to do with the self, with this 我相我见, this view of self, this big me and mine in the middle. That's the culprit. That's the villain. The sixth stage is the unmaking of the self. And that is the gateway to ultimate truth. You go beyond duality at this point. Because why? The Buddha, the Prince, this is where Professor Nakasone's statement powers in, right? The Prince did not have this in mind when he left the palace. All he knew was he didn't want to just die at the end of his life. And he reached what is called the deathless successfully, and this is what he found. This was the discovery that the Buddha made, was that the self that is ultimately dominant in every thought we have is created, is a constructed self. It's not ultimate. It's a story we tell ourselves that is backed up, mind you, by the skandhas inside, the six senses and thinking and deeper constructs of thought, the samskaras and consciousness. But it's a story, and it can be untold. When the self is seen through truly, and there's been this transformation in body and mind, birth and death end here. And the world around us is seen as a fault of vision, faulty way of seeing, right? And what is there? Liberation is there. Liberation from suffering. Okay, what's the deal? What is the sixth stage? It's called the 12 links. Now, when I was, first starting to meditate, man, anything that had 12 in it, I was intimidated. Too many to learn, right? Who can do that? Somebody who already learned that is powerful over me. I didn't want to get close to it, right? And truly, 6 paramitas is already a lot, right? 6 perfection, but 12 anything? Eightfold path, that's pushing it. Eightfold, I can't remember all 8, right? 12 links. But I stepped up when I reached the Avatamsaka, said, I got to learn this because I'm responsible for explaining it. If I can't explain it, nobody else needs to listen, right? So it was when I got to the 12 links and the 6th stage, the stage of Shen Di, stage of appearance, manifestation, this came alive for me. And that's when I said, oh boy, maybe Dr. Nakasone was right. Oh, good. Finally, I'm big-hearted enough to acknowledge his rightness. Okay, yeah, he didn't need me to finally to agree with him before he was right. Okay, look at this text. And for our translator, I apologize. I can't read it all. We don't have time. Can't do both languages, but scan through it quickly. When the Bodhisattva contemplates this, right? What does he do? He says, ordinary people don't have the wisdom, so we put the self first. We go back between, it exists, but I'm going to die, and then what? Maybe I'll get the vaccine, but what if the vaccine hurts me, right? How about the doctor who says, well, it might hurt you, but if you get the coronavirus, it will hurt you. So go with what might hurt you, might not. They don't see correctly, they make wrong choices. They go down crooked roads. They create offenses, imperceptible karma. So old age, sickness, and death comes right along with this indecision between existence and non-existence. Okay, right here, the sixth stage begins giving us what? 10 repetitions of the 12 links. And oh man, here, the first time through, it shows us in a garden metaphor. The Buddha puts it right on the ground. He says, karma is like a field. Consciousness is seeds. Ignorance is darkness that covers it over. We don't know what's going on out there. But the water of love makes the seeds wet. Pride and arrogance irrigate the field. Views increase like a net. Name and form sprouts. Name and form grow. We have 5 sense organs. They pair with objects. They make contact in the world. There's feeling. We love certain ones. We hate certain ones. We grasp on to the ones that we love. We run from the ones we hate. Existence comes into being. A body with 5 skandhas is born, and once it's born, it dies. Old age takes us, we die. There is misery. There is worry, grief, sorrow, and lamentation, a multitude of sufferings. Right? Buddha says, suffering comes from the cause of conditions, but there's nothing there ultimately except this process that pulls the next link, pulls the next link. It moves on towards its end, but there's nothing that ends. And the Bodhisattva contemplates the characteristics of conditioned arising, the 12 links. You know, I read that with a thought, I get that, I like that garden metaphor. Is that what it is, Buddha? How come I didn't understand that? And the Buddha goes on and says what? Ignorance is the name we give failure to understand truth in the primary sense. Okay, let's just take that one sentence out, put this away now, because I know people that you were tired of hearing my voice a long time ago, and now I'm still going. Okay, we want our notes on the 10th stage. Here we go. Take it down here, paste it in. Look at this. Ignorance is the name that we give failure to understand, put quotes around, truth in the primary sense. D-E-E-D is truth in the primary sense. What is truth in the primary sense? Is knowledge that the self is not ultimately real. It's a constructed self. That's called 无明. 什么叫无明? 无明就是不明白. D-E-E-D. Truth in the primary sense. This is what the Buddha understood. This is what the prince understood that turned him into the Buddha. So 6 years in the Himalayas, right? Working on his yoga, working on his kuhang, his bitter practices, all to get him to the place where he could witness his ignorance creating this false self and when he woke up, ignorance was gone. And you know what he saw? He saw a house built by craving. And he says, craving is the builder of this house. Craving is the builder of this house. Through many rebirths in samsara wandering, I sought but could not find the builder of this house. O house builder, I've seen you at last. You will build no house anymore. Your ridgepole shatters, your rafters all fall down. My mind realizes the unborn, and craving comes to an end, he said, right? That's our Mahayana Northern tradition story about the first thing the Buddha said. But actually, I'm sorry, that's the, I said it wrong. That's the Theravada, that's the Pali-based story of what the Buddha said first. Craving is the builder of this house, only because I had this thirst inside me that pushed me out. So I thought what I was looking for was outside. But I understand that once craving ends, ignorance breaks up, and that's it. I'm done, right? No more rebirth. So, all right. The first here, let's, this is key, right? If we can grab this sentence, truth in the primary sense is understanding that the self doesn't really exist. That is liberation. All right, here's the 12 links. Ready? Here they are. Praticca samutpada is right here. Here are the 12. Okay, first one, Wuming, ignorance. Okay, then they say the word is, in Chinese, is yuan, right? Links to, pulls along, conditions. We used to translate it as conditions. I don't like that word anymore. I think, say it, pulls, right? The next one. And then Xing pulls the next one, Shi. And then Shi pulls the next one, Ming Su, mind and body, right? So each one pulls the next one along. And here's the one right here. Because of ignorance, we don't see the process happening. What was different about the Buddha was he was a meditator. The prince was out there meditating along. And because of Samadi on stage 5, he was able to watch his subtle mind do this pattern. And why Nakanakasoni says this was the great contribution, because the Buddha knew where to look inside, and he had the stillness to witness what was really going on. The point is, these 12 pullings along, these 12 links, linking, pulling along, are happening inside of each one of us right this very microsecond. We're doing this. This is a living program. Think computer program inside our living being's nature, happening right this minute, pulling us to our eventual death and bringing us back into rebirth, right? And the Buddha said, what is the prince saw? I didn't see this before because I was covered over. Wuming, no light. Ignorance covered me over. Now that ignorance is gone and I see it. I see the house builder building this house of my body and life over and over again. Why did ignorance go away? I saw through the self. What is ignorance? Wuming, D-E-E-D. Understanding, not understanding truth in the primary sense, which is the self is a necessary illusion. Seeing that, I don't have to follow. And we should actually, to do this whole thing correctly, there's 2 sides of this. And when ignorance is mia, undone, right? Oh, sorry. Conditions as a verb. One more time. Okay. When it is undone, we would say eradicated, extinguished. When ignorance is over, when ignorance stops, then Xing stops, mental formations. When Xing stops, consciousness stops. When consciousness stops, mind, right? We put an end to the cycle. So the sixth stage gives us this whole story. And it's what the Buddha saw. And why is this the major contribution to world religions? It's because it explains where the creator came from, as well as the creation. It's a creation story for every creator. We call, whether it's Brahma, whether it's Lord God, whether it's Yahweh. I don't want to blaspheme the prophet and Allah, but any supreme being has to have a beginning and an end. And if that beginning and an end is no light, is not seeing, not understanding that the void, you could say Zhen Kong, true emptiness, and Miao Yo, wonderful existence working together, is the source, then every one of those supreme beings can go to Palm Beach, can go to, can return to Palm Springs and take a rest. And then please come back and teach the rest of us, right? They can all rest finally. They don't have to do their work as supreme beings with all of the bureaucracy and paperwork involved, right? So yeah, this is the deconstruction of everything combined with the compassion that brings the Bodhisattva back to wake others up. I'm just floored by the Buddha's willingness to, after seeing this pattern, what does it say in our text today? Subtle. This is subtle wisdom. He came back to explain it and said, once you catch it working as it is right this millisecond, milli instasecond, right? It's happening right now in all of us, creating, pulling us in. For me, it was like, this is worth devoting my life to understanding. I want to understand this. I want to watch myself. I want to catch myself in the act of going through this list, because what is there at the end of Sheng Lao Bing Si, old age, sickness, birth, old age, sickness, and death, and rebirth, is Yo Bei Ku, suffering, whole mass of suffering, right? And if I can catch that in action, well, suffering's over for me and for anyone I can teach. How powerful is that? This is Buddhism's creation story. And I tell you, we have our local interfaith group here in the Gold Coast, and I've got I was invited to give the journey. Everybody gives a journey once a month when we meet, and we hear about our Baha'i friends and our Islamic friends and their journeys. If I told the story of the 12 links and deconstructed everybody's God, they would go, it's quite listening to Reverend Shul was enlightening, and I hope he never comes back. I can't say it. I just don't. So we talk about something in gathering. This is deep. This is powerful. Dharma. And boy, oh boy, the sixth stage of the 10 stages chapter is the airplane takes off the runway, and you get a look at something that physics shouldn't be able to explain, right? How an airplane that heavy can take off the ground. But what's heavier than birth and death, right? Amen. So, all righty. What do we got? We got, may we gather. May we gather is, bring it up here. This is, here we go. May we gather right there. All right. Let me say it first in Chinese. 我们, here, we'll take this whole thing out of my notes page and put it here in a new page. There we go. There it is. Make that bigger for all of us here. And the 就说我们邀请你参加 May we gather 全美全世界亚上佛教徒就说追念仪式oh, there's two. We only need one of those. The date is, what is it? A National Buddhist Memorial Ceremony for Asian American ancestors to be live streamed Tuesday, May 4th. This is coming Tuesday, Wednesday here in Australia. 4 p.m. It's, I think, 10 or 11 a.m. here in Australia. And we'll take you out to that website so you can see it. This is a positive Buddhist-sponsored response to Asian American and Asian Australian hate crimes, and also to say that we want to acknowledge the existence in America of indigenous Buddhists. There's sort of a feeling that all Buddhism in America is white convert Buddhism. Not the case. Here it is, Tuesday, May 4th. It's on YouTube. Go to YouTube. 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You see this beautiful graphic of a planet that's been, what, rakud, is that what the gold patching together the teacup? It's all the different Asian elders. And there's a, I'll send you out to maywegather.org. There it is, maywegather.org. You can all read the stories, very powerful. Professor Duncan Ryukin Williams is one of the co-sponsors for this. And these are all the organizations and individuals, and you can join too. Just follow the link. So it's this is something that has not happened before in America. So it's a historic moment, and I think there's goodness and solidarity is going to happen here. All righty, there's that. Jin Chuan, Jin Wei Shi, can I encourage you to share with us some news from Berkeley if you have any?
Sure. We don't have too many new advancements to give. The bowing session at the 60,000 Buddha is still going on. So we've moved our afternoon recitation to 12 to 12:30, and also stopped our 2 to 3:30 Amitabha recitation. On so that goes to the CDDB bowing session. So that's on Saturday. Other than that, our online schedule is the same for the next couple of weeks. We're in discussion about doing a bathing Buddha ceremony. So we'll let people know about that in a couple of weeks.
Great. Okay, thank you for that then. I've got all these, my excitement about discovering how the五明学, the five-fold sciences, make an incredible humanities curriculum. I get so excited about that. And this, what is the content of your curriculum and the pedagogy is something that you pay entire scholastic departments to. A lot of people on salary arguing this too. So for me to come up and say, back in the Buddha's time, they had this wonderful curriculum, we could learn from it. People go, how many languages do I need? Well, we got Tibetan here, we got Sanskrit, we got, everything. So, right. Yeah, but it is really compelling to realize that there was, that the proper study of humans was people, that humanity was the proper study of education before we build wonderful machines. Now, our wonderful machines certainly have their place, but we've also laid waste to the world with our machines without understanding what we ourselves are about as humans. So let's get our priorities straight. And the ancients, mind you, before electricity, we were talking the other day, you realize that before electricity came about, if you wanted to listen to music, you had to find a musician. All music was organic, right? There was no such thing as a speaker whereby, or one of these devices that allow you to, pick the music of your choice and your own playlist. No, you had to have a musician and an instrument. How many pianos? Back in the 30s in America, what was it? Some remarkable number, like 2 out of 5 homes in America had a piano in the home. It was a mark of participation in the culture. I remember my father gave my mom Baldwin spinet piano for her birthday once. And, oh, my mother cried. She was overjoyed to have that piano. So, yeah. And now with electricity, oh my goodness, anybody online plays a better banjo than I do. So. Okay, drop thumb. So let us now, mindful of the suffering of coronavirus sufferers worldwide now. India is the current focus. We, America, were the focus. Australia has the angel of COVID-19 death has passed by our house. It's flown over. And we didn't put blood by the doorpost, but it flew over nonetheless. Something to do with being an island with blessings. And anyway, places where they're not an island, but humans circulate widely. Those are places that have suffered hugely. So instead of transferring with our regular Weixiang, our transference song, we're using Medicine Buddha's mantra. And I'm using my Dharma wheel banjo as well to lead us in a Sanskrit chant of the Medicine Buddha mantra. This is the Yao Shifu Guanding Zhanyan. This is the Yao Shi Rulai Guanding Zhanyan, that called the mantra for anointing the crown of the head of Medicine Buddha. And in Sanskrit, it's got some real strength. So please make a wish. There are 140 of us on YouTube today, 70 in the Chinese line. Great. A lot of people are bowing. So. Did you make your wish for transference? samyak sambuddhaya Please join me in making 3 bows to the Buddhas. First bow. Second bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Thank you for joining, Dharma friends. See you all next week for the